Hello everyone out there in YouTube land. I am the Scent Maven and welcome back to my channel, Shopping in Scents. Now today we have a non-scent, non-shopping related video. I have a movie review to share with you and I know what you guys are thinking. Scent Maven, why are you doing another movie review when no one watched your last one? I don't know. Actually I do know, because it's a sequel to one of my favorite movies. Now I did go see Zombieland Double Tap, which is also a sequel to one of, I wouldn't say my favorite movie, but a good movie. And that was good, but I didn't review it because, like I said, when I did my review of The Joker, nobody watched it. So why am I here doing another review? If you can tell by my shirt, you know what we're here to review. This says the Overlook Hotel, Sidewinder, Colorado, and it has the two twins on it. So we are here to talk about Dr. Sleep, which is the new movie that is the sequel to Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, which was based on a book written by Stephen King. Dr. Sleep is also based on a book by Stephen King. So even though it's not called The Shining Part 2, it is the sequel to The Shining. So the first thing that I would say about this movie is I would highly recommend that you watch The Shining first before you go see Dr. Sleep. That's not to say that you wouldn't enjoy the movie, but you would enjoy it a whole lot more if you watched The Shining. I think the movie would be really hard to follow if you hadn't seen The Shining. And if you have seen The Shining, I would say rewatch it if you haven't seen it in a while before you go see Dr. Sleep. Now, do we really need a sequel to The Shining almost 40 years after the original movie came out in 1980? Well, I would say yes and no. There are a lot of unanswered questions at the end of The Shining. If you have not watched that movie, spoiler alert here. So, the end of The Shining, we see that Danny Torrance and his mom, Wendy, escape the wrath of Jack Nicholson, who goes nuts in the movie. They escape, but we never do find out what happens to them after that. We never find out what happens to the hotel. We don't know where they go. We don't know what they do. And I've always been kind of curious, what happened to them, what happened to the scene and all that kind of stuff. So because Stephen King wrote a sequel to The Shining that they were able to base the movie on, I think, that's somewhat fair to say that it was a good time to adapt it. The book Dr. Sleep came out only about like 3 years ago, something like that. I want to say 2017. That's probably wrong. So, yeah. Now, would I recommend going to see this movie? Is it a good sequel? Well, I would say that it answers a lot of unanswered questions in The Shining. The movie Dr. Sleep is about Danny Torrance, who is the son in The Shining, and what happens to him when he grows up. So he has some issues, obviously. He's picked up the alcoholism from his dad, inherited it, was, prone to it or whatever, but he became an alcoholic. It could be because his dad was an alcoholic. It could be because of all the stuff that he saw. Who knows? But he became an alcoholic, and he has haunting visions of what happened to him at the Overlook Hotel. All the scary things that he saw continuously revisit him, and he has to find a way to push them out of his mind, lock them away, and be able to move on with his life. Now, they do show flashbacks of scenes in The Shining, but they are recreated new scenes, not CGI original scene. Well, not original, that wouldn't be original, but they're not like CGI scenes or reused scenes from the original Shining. They're recreated scenes with new actors. So we have new people playing the young Danny Torrance, new person playing the Shelley Duvall character, the mom, Wendy, a new character playing Jack Nicholson, and of course, a new character playing Scatman Crothers, whose name was Dick Hallorann in The Shining. They show them, they kind of look like the previous actors that they're now playing. I would say that they pretty much limit the amount of time that you see them, so you're not sitting there thinking to yourself, well, gee, that's not Shelley Duvall, that's not Jack Nicholson, that's not Danny Lloyd or Scatman Crothers. So you don't really get put off by it. I'm having a hard time doing this review staring at this image. It's so disturbing. So I'm going to put that face down over there. So what happens? I want to say Danny Lloyd. No, Danny Torrance. Danny Lloyd is the actor that played the little kid in the original Shining. Danny Torrance, played by Ewan McGregor, he's grown up, he's got this alcoholism problem, and he's dealing with these flashbacks. And he gets visits from the Dick Hallorann character, who was Scatman Crothers, who kind of helps him deal with some of these issues. He also transplants himself, moves to a new location, starts a new life, and tries to move on with things. So we spend a lot of time getting to know Danny Torrance and what's happened to him. Then while that is going on, we meet this band of nomad type vampire characters, vampire-like characters, led by Rose the Hat. I don't know what the actress is in the movie that plays her. And so this traveling group of these nomads, they are seeking children that have the shining power. So if the Shining, for those of you who don't know, is the power, the ability to see things that have happened in the past and the ability to see things that have not happened yet. So these vampire creatures feed off of the Shining in these little children. They're able to sense the children that have the Shining, and they need to take that essence from them, and in doing that kill them in order to sustain their own life. And the stronger the shine is in the little kid, the more sustained, the more fed the more fed they are. So they detect this young girl in the movie. It's the African American girl in the movie, right, little kid. She has a very powerful shining, and they haven't fed on someone that has that much shine to them in a while, so they want to go after her. Now, she uses her shining, which she thinks is magic, to contact Danny Torrance. She mentally contacts him, and they connect, they meet, and they have a discussion. This is in the trailer, you can see it. And she said, "You're magic just like me." And he said, "Well, I don't know about magic. I used to call it the Shining." So they team up in order to save the little girl from these vampire creatures. They're not interested in Danny anymore because he's an adult. I guess the shine gets less as you're older. We don't really know, but they're interested in little kids. So they team up in order to take on these creatures. One of the actors in the movie, which I don't think gets enough credit, I don't think he got any credit really, for being such a good actor. So along with Rose the Hat, there is this guy known as the Crow. If you look on IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes or whatever, the character is called Crow Daddy, but in the movie they just call him the Crow. And he is played by this guy, Zach McClarnon. And I recognized him immediately from the second season of the television show Fargo. He plays Hansi Dent, and the television series Fargo is based on the movie Fargo by the Coen brothers. So Zach McClarnon as the Crow is just a very charismatic character. He just has this aura about him that's just really interesting. Now, the thing that I think we all want to go to see Dr. Sleep for, those of us who want to see it, is the fact that Danny Torrance returns to the Overlook Hotel. And we get to see a lot of the iconic figures and scenes from The Shining, like I said, recreated in a way. Now, I found the movie when I first watched it, I only watched it once, but as I was watching it for the first time, I thought it was a slow burn. I didn't understand why we had to learn so much about Danny Torrance and his life, and Rose the Hat, and this group of vampire creatures, and all this other stuff that we have to learn before we get to where we want to be in the movie, which is back at the Overlook Hotel. So it's really a slow burn, leading to the last 40 minutes of the movie. And the movie's about 2 hours and 20 minutes, just like the original Shining is around 2 hours, 20 minutes. If you're going to see it at the movie theater, which is only in theaters, and you got to count all the previews and stuff, you're looking at about 3 hours running time. So it's a lead up to the last 40 minutes. But when you get to that 40 minutes, it starts to go real fast or really fast. Losing my grammar. It starts to go really fast, and you're just like, wow. Because they could have done the movie so wrong. They could have wrecked a classic movie. I mean, to do a sequel to such an iconic horror film that's considered one of the classic horror films of all time, that's been around for almost 40 years and has had 40 years to accumulate, fandom and admiration and accolades and all that other stuff. That's a pretty hard thing to take on. It's like if you were going to do Casablanca 2 or Gone with the Wind 2, I don't think Margaret Mitchell wrote a sequel to Gone with the Wind. I might be wrong. But yeah, so when you get to the last 40 minutes, it's really amazing. It's really exciting. And then after you've absorbed the whole movie, you've seen it, then you realize the importance of all that character development that took place in the beginning. And you get to appreciate the movie as a whole. Now, is it as good as The Shining? No. Maybe in 40 years we'll look at it and maybe we'll say it's kind of okay. I don't think it'll ever reach that iconic level. I don't think it's impossible for it to reach that iconic level. But it's definitely worth a viewing, especially if you are a fan of The Shining. You will, I think, enjoy this movie. I think they could have gone a completely different way with it and just cheaped out and this is what I imagined that they would have done. And maybe this is if Stephen King hadn't wrote the sequel. I imagine that they would have taken Danny Torrance. He's haunted by these ghosts from the Overlook, and for some reason he has to return there and battle all of the creatures that were there before. The woman in the bathtub, the two twins, the bartender Lloyd, maybe Stuart Ullman, the creepy guy that's dressed like a bear in that one scene that makes no sense. So I imagine that he would have had to go back and fight all those creatures, and they would have done a whole big CGI thing, and maybe they would have, transplanted Shelley Duvall and Jack Nicholson as they were back then into the movie. It could have been a complete just disaster, and I'm glad they didn't do that. What else would I say about this? The characters that play, the new actors that played the actors in the original movie sound a lot like them, look a lot like them, especially the Shelley Duvall character, Wendy Torrance. It really sounds like her. Even the guy that's attempting to play Jack Nicholson is kind of I know there are a lot of actors that can do Jack Nicholson's voice, imitations and stuff. He's got a very distinctive kind of like nasal voice. So I think they picked some really good look-alike, sound-alike characters. And as far as my favorite part of The Shining, and I'm probably your favorite part of The Shining, other than the part where he breaks through the door, is the two little twin girls. Okay, so I know that because they only have the one line in the movie, "Come and play with us, Danny, forever and ever and ever," right? They use the original sound of the girls' voices in the movie when you see the twins. So, and I'm not taking away anything here because a lot of what I'm telling you is in the trailer. So no big shock that the twins are in there. Not for very long, but they use the old voice from the original Shining in the new movie because that's definitely the original sound. Yeah. So it was a good movie. The little girl that is the central character in the movie is a really good actress. I don't know what her name is. You guys can look it up. And Ewan McGregor, who I'm not going to say I'm not a fan of his. I don't even remember any movies that he was in. So I can't say that I've watched a lot of his movies. Yeah. So go see Dr. Sleep. I give it 2 thumbs up. If you can catch the matinee, all the better. It got, I think, pretty positive reviews. When I went to see it, I went to the matinee because I knew the movie was going to be really long and I was prepared for that. So I'd rather go to the matinee when there's not a lot of people in the theater and there's plenty of parking. But the people that were there at the theater, there was maybe about 10 people in the theater. They were showing it in a smaller theater because the one I go to, the movie theater I go to is like a multiplex. So they have multiple different theaters. At this particular showing, the matinee, they had it in a smaller theater. Maybe it's because it wasn't the opening week. Maybe it was because it was the time of day. I don't know. But in the theater, there were about 10 people, including myself. When I was standing online to buy tickets, a lot of people were going to see Terminator, which I have no interest in seeing. Didn't care for, I don't even think I really watched the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger in it. Not a big fan of Terminator. So a lot of people are going to see that. A lot of people are going to go see the new movie that came out, Ford versus Ferrari, which I think I've seen the trailer, but I just don't care. Yeah. So Dr. Sleep, good movie. Go see it. Watch The Shining first. Rewatch The Shining if you've already seen it. And prepare to really have a nostalgic journey back to a great classic film. That's my thoughts on this. Now, I'm not a professional film reviewer, obviously, and there are people who review movies a lot better than I, and I'm going to tell you who they are. So, if you're interested in good professional movie reviewers on YouTube, I would say my favorite one right now is Jeremy Jahns, and he spells his last name Jahns. Jeremy Jahns, go check him out. Second to him, Chris Stuckman. Go check him out. If you're interested in watching people who do trailer reaction / reviews, I would say my favorite is The Reel Rejects, and that's real spelled REEL. And these other 2 guys, and they're called Previewed. So Preview 'D. So go check out Jeremy Jahns, Chris Stuckman, The Reel Rejects, and Previewed. And I think you'll find much better reviews than the one that I just did. So what am I looking forward to seeing next? Are you guys interested? Probably not. But I really do want to see the new Mr. Rogers biopic, which I did a thoughts on the trailer review, my past videos. It's called Won't You Be My Neighbor? And I'm also looking forward to this murder mystery movie with, I want to say his name is Daniel Craig, and it's called Knives Out. So I'm looking forward to that. But the movie that I really want to see when it comes out in December is depending on how you're counting them, the third in the Jumanji series. So there was the original Jumanji years and years and years ago with Robin Williams. And then they redid it a couple of years back with The Rock, which I really liked that one. It was The Rock, Kevin Hart. The Rock, Kevin Hart, and a bunch of other people. And now they've done the third one. And they've brought back The Rock and Kevin Hart. They've also included Danny DeVito and Danny Glover. And if you watch the trailer for that, it looks like a really fun movie. Then on Netflix, I saw a trailer. Actually, I watched the trailer reaction on Previewed. And I really want to get around to watching it on Netflix. And it's Between Two Ferns, the movie. And I'm not a big fan of the TV episodes of Between Two Ferns. I don't really watch them, but the movie looks really funny, and Will Ferrell is in it, and the guy from The Hangover, I can't think of his name right now, but you guys know who I'm talking about. Anyway, this review has been super long, so thank you for sticking with me. Remember to comment, rate, subscribe, and until next time, goodbye everyone out there in YouTube land.